Maelstrom, a Swedish officer in Bushehr, incited local tribes against the British. Rais-Ali Delvari of Delva, Tangjestan, resisted British invasions in World War I, defending Iran's east-west bridge status. Despite British attempts, Delvari united tribes to repel invaders, eventually securing victory. With the support of German agent Wilhelm Wasmus, Delvari challenged British dominance and revived Iranian national spirit during the Qajar rule. Delvari's assassination on September 4, 1915, solidified his legacy, commemorated on the Day of Struggle against British colonialism. Tangestani fighters, led by Delvari, defied the odds, inspiring a resilient Iran against foreign encroachment. Maelstrom, a Swedish officer of the gendarmerie in Bushehr, who incited the local tribes against the British, writes in his memoirs, "A few days after the assassination of Rais-Ali Delvari, my mission came to an end. As I was leaving the village, a young man waved his hand, shouted, and yelled loudly, 'I want to be Rais-Ali.' I got emotional. We said our goodbyes and left from there." Rais-Ali Delvari was born in the village of Delva, a part of the Tangjestan county, in the year 1882 AD. Tangjestan is a mountainous area in the southeastern province of Bushehr. It stretches from the southern region of Dashtistan to the coastal area of the sea. Tangjestan itself includes northern Tangjestan, centered around Aram, and coastal Tangjestan, centered around Delva. Ali Delvari's father was a man named Zahir Muhammad, later known as Mu'in al-Islam. Zahir Muhammad was the village headman of Delva. The Delvari family had migrated from Nurabad Momasani in previous eras to settle in Delva. Due to its geographical location, Iran has been a crossroads of historical events. From ancient times to the modern era, it has been a region that connected the East and the West. All of these factors made various superpowers of different periods always covet Iran's land and resources, as this pathway allowed them to extend their influence. They achieved successes in many instances, but they also faced formidable barriers along the way. Amidst this context, the southern part of Iran experienced British invasions on 4 occasions in the years 1837, 1856, 1909, and 1915. Earlier in the 16th century, the Portuguese occupied the Persian Gulf. In 1753, the Dutch also occupied the island of Kag. However, this occupation didn't last long, as the tribes in the southern region fought against the Dutch and managed to liberate Kag from their colonial rule. Before World War I, the situation in Iran was far from ideal. The ruler of Iran at the time was Muhammad Ali Shah Qajar, who was not only inept but had also shown a lack of capability. We became acquainted with the character of Muhammad Ali Shah Qajar in the article Sattar Khan. He was the same person who pursued the massacre of the people of Tabriz and declared, "Bring me Sattar Khan, dead or alive, and I will give you glad tidings." Eventually, his rule was entirely removed by Sadr Assad Bakhtiari. However, during World War I, even though Iran had declared neutrality, it still faced unfavorable circumstances and struggled to defend its neutrality. Nevertheless, the presence of patriotic individuals who, apart from government forces, were fighting against foreign invaders ensured that Iran emerged from this ordeal with its integrity intact. During that period, the Qajar rulers signed agreements with Britain and Russia. According to these agreements, Russia was allowed to move from the north towards Iran and take control of the northern region. Britain, on the other hand, stated that they were coming from the south, and they divided Iran between themselves quite easily. The incompetence of the Qajar government made it easier for them to advance and achieve their goals. Additionally, there was a famine in Iran, which further aided their efforts. The hungry Iranian population couldn't effectively resist the foreign invaders since they had to focus on feeding themselves. But in the southern part of the country, towards Bushehr, the stories were completely different. If Britain could take control of Bushehr, they could almost secure victory in World War I. Bushehr provided them with a very powerful position. It not only allowed them to get closer to India, which was under British control at the time, but they could also bring Indian forces into Iran and involve them in the war. They could also establish a major commercial and economic port. Rais-Ali Delvari gathered the southern tribes around him and held a meeting. He united all these people and declared that the British intended to enter Bushehr and take control of the country's soil. All the tribes united with the goal of resisting British forces. They pledged to resist the British invasion until the last drop of their blood. The British ships were visible in the distance but had not yet anchored in the port. In 1914, with the start of World War I, Britain attacked neutral countries like Iran and brought all its military forces into Iran through the south. Conflicts arose between the southern tribes and the British forces. The first clashes between the southern tribes and Britain occurred in the month of Ramadan, March to April, in 1914-1915. The British forces did not expect to encounter such strong resistance. They thought they could easily take control of these regions through negotiations. However, under the leadership of Rais-Ali Delvari and his two companions, Kezhan Arami and Mirza Muhammad Khan Ghazanfar Ajani, a war with British forces ensued. In the initial confrontation, the British suffered defeat, which led them to reconsider whether they should engage in battle there, as they were not originally seeking a conflict in southern Iran. At first, the British thought that Rais-Ali Delvari and his companions were just a group of villagers seeking personal gain, fame, and money. Therefore, they sent him a proposal, offering £40,000 and suggesting that he abandon these resistances and exhausting battles. The response Rais-Ali Delvari gave to this proposal once again disrupted the British equations. He said, "How can I remain neutral when the independence of Iran is in serious danger?" When the British saw that this approach wasn't working, they wrote a formal letter with a highly threatening tone. In that letter, they stated, "If you rebel and act against the British government, we will initiate war. In that case, we will destroy your houses and cut down your palm trees." The British forces were waiting for a white flag as a sign of surrender when another letter from Rais-Ali Delvari reached their hands. In this letter, he said, "Our homes are the mountains, and their destruction lies outside the scope of British power and empire. It is self-evident that should they attempt it, we will resist to the utmost of our abilities." When the British realized that they couldn't persuade Rais-Ali Delvari, they suddenly deployed a significant number of their forces to Bushehr without any preamble. Bushehr was practically under British control, and everyone was armed and prepared for war. However, prior to this, there had been a debate among the British commanders about whether to take the islands first or Bushehr. As Bushehr became more challenging to conquer, they decided to send all their forces there first and then seize the islands of Persian Gulf. 100 years ago, in 1812 AD, the British established their first official bases in Persian Gulf. Over the course of those 100 years, they continued to expand their influence more and more. By the time of this event, they had set their sights on occupying Bushehr. The Germans, upon realizing this situation, sent a man named Wilhelm Wasmus to aid Rais-Ali Delvari and his companions. Wasmus was a German agent tasked with obstructing the British and preventing them from achieving their objectives. He had conflicts with the British and aligned himself with Rais-Ali Delvari and his associates. Rais-Ali Delvari, on one hand, had been branded a rebel and troublemaker by Muhammad Ali Shah Qajar, and he was reluctant to put governmental forces under the control of the southern tribes. On the other hand, he was in conflict with the British and saw himself as fighting for independence. This led to a collaboration between Bushehr and Rais-Ali Delvari. Bushehr was aware of a series of British actions and plans. He knew that the British intended to launch an attack on Delvar and were also seeking to capture Rais-Ali Delvari. Therefore, he devised a plan. With the assistance of the southern tribes, they decided to evacuate the village of Delvar and counter the British plan. After evacuating the village, they moved to another location called Bushehr. When the British forces entered the village of Delvar, they found it empty. They assumed that Rais-Ali Delvari and his companions had retreated. With this misconception in mind, they used their rifles and weapons to barricade the vacant houses against a potential return and even cut down the palm trees. They also set some areas on fire, as they had promised in the letter they sent to Rais-Ali Delvari. The British decided to spend the night there, but that night did not pass peacefully. On that same night, Rais-Ali Delvari and his companions engaged with the British forces, and gunfire erupted between them. As a result of these clashes, 60 British soldiers were killed, including a senior commander among them. The British forces were forced to retreat from the area, and Delvar fell into the hands of Rais-Ali Delvari. Following this battle and success, Rais-Ali Delvari continued his attacks and targeted various garrisons and British forces wherever they were stationed. In this endeavor, the merchants and traders of Bushehr played a crucial role. People like Sayyid Muhammad Reza Khazaroni and other traders of Bushehr provided their capital to support these mujahideen. With their financial contributions, they purchased various weapons and ensured the availability of provisions. Overall, unity and solidarity among all the southern tribes, spanning across all social classes, played a significant role. This unity was the key to the British defeat. Maelstrom, in his memoirs, writes, "After the occupation of Bushehr, I headed towards Delvar. When I entered Delvar, I was as happy as if I were about to meet the King of Sweden. When I saw Rais-Ali Delvari, he had just returned from an operation. He and his companions set aside their horses, washed their hands and faces, and then got prepared to eat. Rais-Ali Delvari didn't join us, they said he was fasting. It means that Rais-Ali and his gunmen carried out operations while fasting during the month of Ramadan." World War I had begun, and the Qajar central government was at its weakest point. When Rais-Ali Delvari became disillusioned with the Qajar government, he decided to take action with his allies and the southern tribes. He intended to distance himself from the Qajar army, transforming the struggle into a localized one led by the southern tribes. News of Rais-Ali Delvari's victories spread not only through the southern regions but across Iran, reigniting enthusiasm and eagerness among the Iranian people. These events fostered greater unity among the people and boosted the motivation of Rais-Ali Delvari's militia. After the conflicts between Iran and Russia, following the treaties of Turkmenkay and Gulistan, Iran had consistently faced defeat in various battles, never achieving victory. However, after a century since those days, Iran was once again able to attain victory, notably against the formidable British. This triumph marked the phoenix rising from the ashes after 100 years, rekindling a national spirit. The people were drawn to their homeland and willing to make sacrifices. Much of this credit was attributed to the southern tribes and Rais-Ali Delvari, who rekindled this sentiment in Iran. The British armed forces numbered around 5,000, while the valiant Tanghestani fighters amounted to approximately 100. However, these 100 fighters managed to immobilize the 5,000-strong British forces, ultimately inflicting a decisive defeat upon them. During this period, the British suffered significant casualties, with evidence of this event found in the cemetery of the British invaders in southern Iran, symbolizing the Iranian victories of that era. These individuals were not just ordinary soldiers, high-ranking British officers were also among them. Captain Harbert Chick, stationed at the British consulate in Bushehr, meticulously recorded the daily events in Bushehr and the struggle against the southern tribes. He had a grand mission, to establish British military dominance in Bushehr. However, the unity among the southern tribes created a formidable barrier against British advances, forming a strong resistance. The British naval fleet remained the last hope for Mr. Chick. The British naval fleet, along with all its equipment, eventually reached the port of Bushehr and dropped anchor there. They were not supposed to enter Bushehr with such force, as there was no intention to engage in conflict with the southern tribes. However, the situation continued to escalate. Mr. Chick, in his memoirs about Rais-Ali Delvari, writes the following: "He is a peculiar man, as if he has sworn to be our enemy. I thought he was after money, but he is even more resolute than that." Therefore, Mr. Chick decided to resort to an invisible weapon. He knew that the greatest barrier before him was the unity among the Iranian tribes, especially those in the south. In his memoirs, he writes, "Breaking the unity among the Iranian ethnic groups is not that difficult. On September 4, 1915, Rais-Ali Delvari and his companions intended to carry out a typical nocturnal attack against one of the British bases. During this operation, gunfire was heard from within the Iranian camp. Shortly afterward, Rais-Ali Delvari falls to the ground. He was shot by a bullet from behind, carried out by an infiltrator from within their own ranks named Ghulam Hussein Tangaki, and at the age of 33, he was killed. In accordance with his will, his body was buried in the Valley of Peace, Wadi al-Salam, in Najaf. The 4th of September on the Iranian calendar is a national day known as the Day of Struggle Against British Colonialism. Mr. Chick's plan was accomplished, and he writes in his memoir, "The one I had chosen completed the mission. It was finished. One was gone." However, Mr. Chick was mistaken, nothing was truly finished, and everything was about to begin anew. Events much worse than what we have discussed were destined to occur, not just in southern Iran, but throughout the entire country, dragging Iran into turmoil. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like it, and share it with your friends. Do not hesitate to provide your view regarding this video by putting your comments below. Your comments would help us to improve our work, and also, they help us to take your views into account for the future topics that we select. Furthermore, you can subscribe to our channel to become aware of our new videos.